Hey, I'm here with Rich Cooper, entrepreneur, author, YouTuber. Yeah, I don't know exactly how to explain. So why don't you just give a really quick introduction of yourself? I don't know much about your business end. I know you made a lot of money in business. So
Yeah.
what was that?
Yeah, so I started in credit card debt relief. I was in the third-party collection world for a while, took a package, went home, figured I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore, set up my own business. It still runs to this day. It's been going for 20 years. We were the most successful debt negotiation company in Canada, close to $1 billion of settled debt, super busy stuff. But I got tired. I want to get out of it. So
Yeah.
around 2013, 14, I thought about doing something else, and I've always liked cars and entrepreneurs. So I try to mash up those two things and let them have like idea sex and create entrepreneurs and cars. And the idea at first was to interview entrepreneurs and their success rides and sort of tell what it took to get to that point in their life. But I ran out of friends with cool cars that were willing to do the interviews and let me drive them, sort of thing, and the concept. And it's a lot of work to edit and all that sort of stuff. So I started doing these in-between episodes where I was talking about solving problems in your life, sometimes with lawyers in your business, accounting, how I would hire people. And then I was reading the comments one day and a guy said, you should do a video on the kind of women not to date. And that got me like 100 times more views than anything else I'd ever done before. So I started talking about dating and relationships and reading every single Evo Psych book I could. Then I kind of tripped into the manosphere, which I now call the Mano Swamp, and the Red Pill and all that sort of stuff. So that brought me to where I am today, basically.
Yeah, like I know you from Twitter, and I went and clicked on your YouTube, and it's massive. Like I think like almost 800,000 people or something. Like wow, you built a huge YouTube. I'm brand new to trying to build that, so I'm like wow, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, total across all views is about a billion views total.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. That's way more than like a billion views on Twitter. Doesn't really mean much when you're scrolling through. But
Twitter,
like
TikTok, Instagram, Reels, everything. Yeah.
Other thing that's like big on the views. That's congratulations.
Thank you.
So yeah, you're currently living in Canada, huh?
Yeah, fun place, Toronto. Yeah.
Yeah, like I actually like Toronto, but I haven't been there in like almost 10 years. You know, I'm not sure if I'm allowed there right now, but
yeah, it's one of those. Trudeau's Canada is like one of those places that you just. I mean, I'm stuck there because I got family obligations for a few more years. But my plan is to get out of there and spend a lot less time there in the future.
Yeah, has it gotten a lot more liberal over the last 10 years? Because I used to go there a lot about 10 years ago, but haven't been in a while.
Yeah. I used to go downtown Toronto in my 20s to the nightclubs, and all the women were thin, beautiful, attractive, no purple hair, I'm not going to say conservative, but more conservative than liberal. Now I just completely avoid the city whenever I can.
Dang. That's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was there. I've been there a few times. We fought George St. Pierre there, and that was like a massive fight. So my face was all over the town. So I went there like a month later, for like a week, and it was just like everywhere, just getting swarmed. I'm like, oh, there's hot girls everywhere. I'm like, this is a fun city.
Yeah.
So maybe my opinion's biased, so why I'm like, the city's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most of the attractive ones sort of moved out or moved south or to Europe or something.
Yeah, because I remember there was like a lot of attractive women in Toronto. That's
I
disappointing.
had a conference back in January in the city, and one of the comments I got from a lot of guys that had never been to the city is like, why are there not that many attractive women? Like, there's a lot of women here that I would not even touch with a 10-foot pole. And I'm like, well, times have changed here.
That's interesting, yeah, because I remember them being really attractive there, Montreal, and what's the other one on the West Coast?
Vancouver,
yeah.
It's super multicultural in Canada, right? Like we've got, if you like Asians, Indians, like whatever your preference is, whatever your flavor is, you can find it in downtown Toronto. It's just, they're not as attractive as they used to be for sure.
Yeah. Are they flooding in immigrants in Canada like they are in America?
Tons, not quite as much as you guys are getting walking across the border, but Trudeau's very friendly to refugee policies, free money, free cell phone, free accommodation, bring in your family. They don't need to work. It's a problem, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy because you can't just bring in people unless they're working. It's like you can't.
Well,
I don't think you should have too much immigration, period, because I think you need to do it slow so they assimilate. But if you are flooding them, you can't just give them free stuff. Like, how are we going to keep paying for all this?
I don't get it because, like, I'm an immigrant, right? Like, I came to Canada from England. I was born in England. My family, like, my dad's side of the family is English. My mom's side's Greek. And, coming to Canada for us, I waited 10 years before we got citizenship. I didn't even get a Canadian passport until I was in my 20s. My dad was telling me that he had to meet all these qualifications to come to Canada. And now it's just, you just have to show up and say, I'm a fugitive or something from some other country. And here's a house, here's a car, here's a cell phone, here's money. You're cool.
Yeah, it's the same in the U.S. They're doing things as crazy as I saw. It's like trying to give interest-free down payments for homes for illegals.
Yeah,
it just makes no sense. I don't know if people.
They have a real problem with the birth rate. It's really low in all Western countries. The only if you look at the heat map in the world, it's just the African continent that has a very strong birth rate in some parts of Asia, but most of Western developed countries is super low. So they're just shoving refugees, immigrants in, whatever they can take.
Yeah, I think it's part of it. I think they also want cheap labor. They want votes. I think it's multiple reasons. But
that's it, votes.
But yeah, no, people. I think part of the problem is sometimes you're living in these big cities and stuff. And you don't have kids and you're older, and then you realize oh wait, I should have a couple kids now. You know, we're living in New York, San Francisco. You're looking around. I mean, I had some kids young, but then you look around and you're like, oh, everyone else should have kids. And I think a lot of people maybe they think they can just keep pushing it off, and you can't. Especially with like fertility rates dropping.
Yeah, women are waiting longer. They're told to climb the corporate ladder, get a degree. It's funny because I used to run the show with a co-host on a podcast we called Ladies Night. And we kind of invite these gals on and we talk to them and we have a conversation. But what are your dating objectives? What are you looking for? And all of these girls were like, I want to describe what I'm after. And then we'd ask them, well, what do you bring to the table? It's like, well, I'm successful and I have a Tesla and I have 3 degrees and I have a house and it's decorated nicely. And it's like, I'm responsible. And it's like you're basically describing what makes a man attractive to a woman, and you've turned yourself into a horrible version of a man, and then you've basically priced yourself out of the market, which is why you're single and you don't have any kids now.
Yeah, what men and women are attracted to are completely different.
Totally different.
Women don't understand. We don't care if they make money like at all.
They're feminizing men and they're masculinizing women.
Yeah, the feminization of men is a real big problem. Like, as you got here, we were talking about how, you did a bunch of fight training and did a fight, and like, how much better of a man do you think that made you?
Dude, it was a game changer. I loved it. Like, I didn't think I was going to like it, and I was frightened to do it. My coach gave me a book called The Custom Auto Way by Remus Boxing, and it kind of like frames your mindset to like teach yourself. I've trained for 4 years. I've done the work. I deserve the win. I brought in people to watch me do the fight because I want to be held accountable to it, and I just did it. And the guy that I fought was younger, taller, heavier than me, and it was just a fun thing to do. I think every guy should do it.
I 100%. I think they should make it mandatory in high school. I said this a few times before, to make these guys go, and just the stress you deal with, and even though you were fighting an amateur fight, the stress you're dealing with is still insane, right? People don't understand when you're walking out there to fight, you still have the same pressure, almost the same as a pro.
It was probably the highest level of adrenaline I've ever felt. And I've done a lot of adrenaline fueled things. Like, I race cars, I fly planes, I do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing I've done that matches fighting. I do adrenaline stuff too, I fought in front of 60,000 live people, millions on TV.
That must have been a rush.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Because most arenas in the U.S., I think, hold about 20 at most. I remember walking out, looking up and seeing 60,000 people and just being like, whoa. But then you go, you know what? The other guy I'm fighting is going to have to deal with this too. But there's literally nothing that can match that. And I think that's why a lot of times when fighters first retire, sometimes they go into depression and stuff because you have to find something else to fill that void.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, fighting, I just think it makes you better in so many ways. Plus, you can defend yourself.
It's a skill that they've had for millions of years. Men were required to be competent, to have the ability to get food and to defend, the village from, people that wanted to come and take stuff from them, right? Like, you had to have the ability to defend the women and the children, all that sort of stuff. And that's been stripped away from most of society. The pussification of the Western male is a very real thing. And it's done through government, through media, through religion, through marketing. They even put stuff in the water to make you softer, right? Like, they're putting estrogen. I mean, they're not intentionally putting estrogen in the water, but they're not filtering it out of the water, and they know that it's there, which is softening the Western male. There's lots of things that are going on.
Yeah, and women want a man to defend them. Despite what they say, they want a strong man that's willing to fight for them and puts their life in danger. And most of these men today wouldn't do that. If you're dating a girl, it's your job to put your life in danger. And I see these guys are always like, well, what does the girl offer for me? And it's like, well, maybe they don't respect you because you're not willing to do that. And you shouldn't be dating a girl that doesn't respect you. Yeah. I think, the guys need to make sure so it's like a two-way street. Some of these girls don't offer anything, but you also have to offer something in return to make these girls respect you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, let's switch up real quick. You wrote, I was reading your book, the Unplugged?
The Unplugged Alpha.
Yeah, I hadn't quite finished it, but I actually agreed. I was unsure some of this, manosphere stuff. I kind of laugh at and mock.
Yeah, I came from that space. I'm in the same spot now. I call it the Manoswamp.
Yeah, but I like what you were saying. I agreed with almost everything. I don't even know if there's anything I disagreed with because you explained. Well, first off, you were explaining what men need to do to attract women and be better. Why don't we walk through a few of those points? Because pretty much you were spot on almost everything.
Yeah, I mean, everything that guys have been told throughout their youth and their childhood from every angle, whether they're watching TV shows, Hollywood, sitcoms, even religion. Like, I've said this before, and it upsets a lot of people, but I've said, a lot of churches today are really beta factories, right? Single mother households are beta factories. Like, we have a lot of these soft, weak men that think that if they're just themselves and they're just a nice guy, that the right girl will show up one day and want to, be with them and be exclusive with them into perpetuity. And it just doesn't work that way. No, these are all comforting lies that society sells men so that they can comply with the rest of the sheeple out there. They want you to stand on the dots and wear 3-face diapers and take their experimental jobs whenever they tell you to, which is going to happen again in the future, by the way. But 3/4 of the population complied, right?
Yeah, That was
Very
insane.
few asked
That was
questions.
insane to me, the
Yeah.
whole COVID thing. I
Yeah.
completely rejected
That
that
was
from the
wild.
beginning.
That was wild. I mean, that was the first time in my life. And I asked my dad, around that time, like, did you ever see anything like this any time in your lifetime? Like, he's 80 now. And he's like, never saw anything like this at all.
Yeah, I had read stuff about in the history books before, but I seen that. I was just like, wow. And people were calling us the crazy ones for
Right.
not wanting to wear masks, not wanting the vaccine, not wanting to lock down.
But it's just sensible. Like, like, how do they rush this thing through? Like, is it safe? Like, why are we taking this? Do you really need it if there's a 99% survival rate?
Well, all my doctor friends really disappointed me because I would talk to them and they'd just be like, well, the CDC
Just
says,
take it.
and I'd be like, well, where are they getting this off of?
Yeah.
And they couldn't justify it. And I would do like, I don't know, that was when I first retired, so I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
I was so bored, so I was like, I would carefully look through lots of different data, which is publicly available, and people were like, you're not a doctor, you can't read it.
Yeah.
That's when I started realizing, wow, these doctors.
Why am I not allowed to? Yeah.
These doctors are idiots when I talk to the doctors. Like I looked through and
They're all
saw
part of the sheep. Yeah, most
so
of them.
I could see like, that's what I realized. They just repeat what they're told.
Yeah.
And I would sometimes stick these guys with things they couldn't answer, and they'd be like, well, I don't know, but the CDC says. I'm like, I'm not asking what the CDC says. I'm showing you this doesn't match. So how do you say it? And I realized they freeze up.
To that point, you have to be a critical thinker as a man if you want to attract women, right? Like, you got to be able to solve problems, right? That's the most important skill you need to have as an entrepreneur. People always ask me all the time, Rich, what do I got to do? Do I take a finance course? Do I need to know how to account? What about marketing? It's like, no, dude, you need to know how to solve problems, because that's what running a business is. And that's what being a man is in life in general, right? You got a problem in your house. Are you going to solve it, or is your girlfriend or your wife going to be calling her dad or her brother to come over to fix something that you should be able to do as a man? Like, competency skills, basic competency skills. Most guys don't know how to change a tire today.
That's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
My daughter knows how to change a tire. Like, could you imagine?
It's
like,
unreal.
the car breaks down and the girl changes it.
Yeah, she changes the tire
I
for
wouldn't let
herself,
her
right?
drive until she changed the tire.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's just so embarrassing.
But I wouldn't want my daughter to be with a guy that doesn't know how to change a tire either, right?
No, like I said, I made sure she knew how to do it, but I wouldn't want her. If I saw a guy couldn't do it, I'd be like, all right, you got to find a new guy.
Yeah.
You have to. No, it is weird. Masculinity has just been. Do you think that's deliberately being attacked, or like it seems like it has to be, right?
It's got to be deliberate. Like this cannot be accidental. I don't know if there's like a big table somewhere where like the cabal of leaders sort of sit down and figure this out, and let's pussify the Western male and put more estrogen in the water, and let's give them some more soy, and let's put some more atrazine and pesticides so that they're all feminized. I don't know if they do that or not, but it's certainly happening. So you can just look at the evidence pile up and say, okay, well, all of these things collectively, as you add it up, are certainly contributing to the softening, the weakening of the Western male, which is why we have a lot of the problems that we have in society today, I think, anyway.
Yeah, I think so. And they do they put the women as the superheroes and this and that. And
Any movie.
Dude, women beating up men.
I'll sit there and I'll turn on like a show, and it's like, I'm hopeful that this new Prime or Netflix series that I'll watch will actually have like a good story and like a good lead to it. And it's like 10 minutes in, the main character is like disabled, black, and gay, and he's supposed to be the king of England, or like she's a woman and she's like
black king of England. It's so ridiculous.
Or she's beating the crap out of like 7 guys with like one hand tied behind her back. It's like, come on, man, like let's watch something else now.
Yeah, I hardly watch TV because it's all just such junk. You watch a few minutes and you're like, what the hell? And they do it, and people that are parents, you need to be careful because they're putting stuff in kids stuff like boys kissing and weird stuff like that. They're trying to get the kids young.
I spend a lot of time now, like even as my kid was young, like as she was sort of growing up, like I spent a lot of time saying that would be disappointing if you did that. That's not normal. Do you know why they're doing that? And like asking critical questions. And there's often pushback from the programming from like the school system, and you have to navigate through that sort of thing. So it's like, if you're a parent, you have to take on the responsibility of actually parenting again. Like, I think in my dad's era and my mom's era, like they would have just relied on the school system to be generally good, right? And to discipline you if you did something stupid in school. I think now all parents have to take the reins, and homeschooling is probably a better idea.
Yeah, my daughter went to like Myron, which is one of the most liberal possible places ever, high school, and it was like she was extremely smart, and sometimes she'd argue with her teachers, but they just never wouldn't have any answers, but then they'd just get mad at her. So I had to tell her, I'm like, you probably should just stop arguing with them. You're right, but they're just going to mark down your grades. She's a pretty good arguer, so she's out arguing them a lot, and they just get frustrated because they can't argue the thing.
Yeah, you have to get to the point where you just nod your head and just agree, but you just don't care.
It's unfortunate, but it's kind of what she had to do, But it's hard when I don't hold my tongue, so I couldn't really get mad at her or get in trouble for it. But it's like,
yeah, when you get anti-fragile, then you just open your mouth.
Yeah,
I know the feeling.
Yeah, another thing I would say, like you mentioned, how important critical thinking is. I think it's also important to teach your kids that, like, really, like, let your kids have debates with you. I know it can be hard as a parent because obviously they can't do it in a respectful way. But I always taught kids that they could like challenge me in a respectful way about my way of thinking and why they think different. You can't just be like, no, my way is right. It's like if they have a good argument, they should be allowed to present it.
Yeah, it's like, the way that I run it basically is if I tell you something to do it, or come back with clarifying questions, or come back with a better solution.
Yes. Yeah, no, if I tell you to do something, do it. But like I'm talking about when you're just like brainstorming ideas.
Yeah.
I would always allow them
that's
to
for some
put, to,
feedback.
put, to put their
Why are you
input
thinking
and
that way?
disagree with me, and like, okay, why do you disagree?
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a few times where I even change my mind, you know, and then sometimes change her mind, stuff like that. I think it's just most people want to tell you this is what. Don't ask questions. This is what it is, and you should always question everything. I believe.
Yeah. I find that it's an incredible waste of time, though, to do that with the general folks that you don't really know or even care about, because
Yeah.
I'm all about community, drawing a perimeter around the people that you care about, and then defining who us versus them is. And if they're them, what they generally want to hear, though, is they don't want to hear a new opinion. They want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it's just a waste of energy.
Yeah, you realize debating some people is totally pointless. You're wasting
Yeah.
your time. But some people, you know, in good faith, people that respect, you can have good debates and change people's mind.
Yeah.
So let's switch back real quick to, like I said, you gave the list of the things women are into. And like I said, I think the list was good. We don't need to go through the whole list, but a bunch of things are obvious. But one you put in there that I thought was great that like no one ever mentions is don't be boring.
Yeah.
So many guys are just boring. You can't bore a girl.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I do a lot of one-on-one consults with guys, and they're always high net worth individuals. They can have several exits. They can be worth 8 figures, and they'll be like, you know, Rich, I'm 58. I'm back in the dating world. I want to date younger, more attractive women. I got the money, I got the time, sort of thing. It's like, oh, yeah, cool. You know, so what do you do for fun? You know, like what do you do for dates when you take them out? You know, I'll go out for dinner and we'll sit there and we'll have a meal, sort of thing. Okay, and then what happens? And then I don't hear from her again. And she ghosts me. It's like, okay, well, you're loaded, you're good looking, you're tall, you're squared away, you got money. I'm like, why don't you do something more interesting? I'm like, what do you do for fun when you're not on dates? I remember I had this one guy once, he goes, I love overlanding. Okay, well, what's overlanding? Well, you know, have a tent on the top of your Land Rover rig or something like that, and you go off this is what you do on the next date. You tell her to pack a picnic, you give her a task, right? Because women fall in love with you when they do stuff for you. Give her a task, you know, pack something nice to eat, cheese board, charcuterie, whatever the hell happens to be. Drive her in the middle of the desert. You're going to go watch the sunset. He goes, you know what? It worked fantastic. We spent the whole night out there. We had a great time. I'm seeing her again. She's interesting. She's interested in what I do. It's like women don't have a lot of stuff going on in the world. You have to invite them into your world and then show them interesting things to do, right? Like that's how you get women to stick to you, sort of thing,
Yeah,
right?
always pull them into your world, never go into their world.
Always invite them into your world, yeah. The big mistake that guys make, especially when they try to date like the younger girls, is they try to like associate with their lifestyle, like the kind of music that they listen to. Oh, Cardi B's cool, or whatever it happens to be, whatever that is. It's like bring them into your world, invite them to do cool stuff that you have going on.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And just like even simple things. Let's say you do go to a dinner date, switch locations after dinner. Go somewhere to a bar to drink. Don't
change
just like
the
stay there
venue.
for 3 hours. Girls like they have short attention spans. You got to keep them exciting and moving.
I know this cool place. It's a rooftop. They got
Yeah.
a great view, sort of thing. Oh, I've never been to something like that, right? That's you know that's going to be interesting to her. Now, if you take her to an interesting venue and she's like, oh, I've already been here 6 times, you know she's been around the block and she's probably not the kind of girlfriend that you want to have around anyway.
Yeah, we'll get into that later. But
Yeah.
these are the red flags to look for, which is actually I think we should get into that in a few.
Yeah.
But and then things too, like back when I had no money, I would do simple things like get coffee and take a girl through a walk to a park. That can work if you're if you're interesting. And
That's
you have,
perfect for a first date. Like that's a good sniff test because you don't want to overinvest. A quick drink, a coffee, a stroll in the park, something like that. Like that's what I exactly say in my book. Some women will say, like, there's actually women dedicated on YouTube saying, girl, don't go out for a coffee date. He has to invest in you. He's got to take you out for an expensive dinner. You know, make sure you order the expensive stuff on the menu to see what he does with that sort of stuff. It's like that chick just wants to run you, right? You know, if she's genuinely interested and she's got genuine burning desire, you can tell her, I'm going to pick you up in a garbage truck and she'll want to show up if she really digs your vibe.
Yeah, I think that's why it's important learning to have interesting conversations, to be able to talk about lots of different topics. You know, be well read, make her laugh without making fun of yourself. I mean, there may be exceptions, but generally you don't want the guys that rag on themselves because it doesn't work. But just be interesting.
Yeah,
a lot of guys just don't understand that. They think, oh, I'll talk about money to a girl. Like that's retarded. I've never talked about money to a girl on a date.
Yeah.
You know, that's the worst thing you can do. It's like those are the guys that bitch about gold diggers because all they do is tell the girl how much money they have and then they take them for a ride.
And that's the vast majority of guys' game when it comes to dates, right? Is they'll just talk about girl stuff, and you know, like girls can talk about girl stuff to girls. They don't want to talk about girl stuff to guys. Like what makes you interesting? What makes you successful? What makes you competent? What makes you influential? You know, what makes you a good problem solver, right? Like you have to be able to covertly drop that in without overtly stating like, hey, I'm an interesting guy and I'm influential, sort of thing, right?
Exactly. You don't want to.
She'll Google you.
Yeah, you want to
Like
show
she'll look
worth,
you up,
but without like being like bragging about yourself. You want her
That's why
just to
things
see
like
it.
Instagram are great, you know, because you can have like an online resume. They can just look at you and be like, oh, he leads an interesting life. That's cool.
Yeah, like the funny thing is I'll see guys like talking girls up like, oh, I'm gonna get you in cut line VIP, and they come up and can't get in. For me, I don't say anything. Instead, you just walk right to the front, rock wide in. They're way more impressed than if you're pretending like you can do things versus just showing them you can do things and are competent.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think like I said, that is one of the biggest ones. Interesting conversations, don't being boring. Some other ones, the obvious is money. Girls, of course, they like money.
Yeah.
They do, but it's not. I don't think it's the primary thing they look for with most girls.
Money matters. It's not as important as influence and competency skills and strength and masculinity. Like women will go out and they'll bang a broke ass, strong, masculine looking dude. Like they'll like a guy that just got out of jail without a dime to his name. If he's a handsome dude, she'll spend the night with him for sure. She may not do anything long term, but for short term, she's happy to spend the night with him for free. Right? No problem at all. But yeah, money does come into play. It matters. Money solves problems. Women like resources. They need financial resources, especially if they're planning to have kids. Having the ability to make it rain and take care of problems, put a roof over the head, feed, offer vacations, offer travel, interesting things in your life matter, and money solves problems like that. So having money is important, but it's not the end all be all.
No, it doesn't. And I think it's probably a lot when you're old versus young is different, because when I was really broke, I was young, so it's a lot different than if you're like broke in your 40s.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference in that. If you're broke in your 20s and you're working hard, then that makes up for it.
Yeah, if you're in your 20s, you better be good looking with a plan. If you're good looking without a plan, it's short term. She's not going to be with you very long.
Yeah.
If you're an older guy, you better be good looking, but you better not have a plan. You better have something going on in your life, because if you just have a plan and you're broke, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, you definitely want to be broke. You don't need to be rich, but you can't be broke.
She just expects you to have done something by the time you get to your 30s, 40s. You know what I'm saying? Like have a little bit of something.
So you have to have something, because you can't be like, the thing is, most girls are so clueless with like money, they have no idea what you're even worth. Because perfect example.
I got a funny story for you.
Okay, I do too. I'll go first, I guess.
Yeah.
I was in a podcast with Myron and a few other guys, and one of the girls said, "Oh, I was talking about how you're dating a billionaire," and then one of the guys, "I don't know if you dated a billionaire," and then all of a sudden, every single girl on the show claimed she dated a billionaire.
Yeah.
I think there's like 700 billionaires in America.
Yeah.
Most of them are old, have wives.
Yeah.
Just shows you how out of, and these girls were all like 5s and 6s, just how out of touch they were.
Yeah.
I think Myron then yelled at him and kicked him out.
No, it's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine, on the phone, and my girl wasn't sitting too far away, and he was telling me about how his mentor hired Willie Nelson to do a private concert for him. This guy's a billionaire, story, blah blah blah. Got off the phone. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Like arm's length away from a billionaire, right? Because I'm talking to a friend that's friends with a billionaire. She's like, she looks at me. She goes, "I had no idea that you had that much money." It's like they can't do math. They don't understand the difference between having $1 million, 10 million, or $1 billion. Like the difference between a 10 million, like a guy that's got worth $10 million and $1 billion is massive. It's huge.
Massive, yeah. Yeah, because 10 million, unfortunately, is not that much money anymore. But $1 billion, that's when you start doing stupid stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the thing, yeah. Like most girls just have no clue. You could have like $1 million, $2 million, or $100 million, and they're not even know a difference. As long as you can pay for things, have a decent house, decent car.
Here's an interesting question. I had this dialogue the other day. What do you think is FU money? Like, at what line in the sand is that FU money?
100 million is for sure. 100 million is where I say you're rich, but lower than that, you start being pretty damn rich too. 50 million is pretty damn rich.
Yeah.
Fortunately, 10 million is not really that rich anymore. It's
like 10 million is a new million, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of, I hate to say that, but that's kind of the point where you're just like, oh, I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
In a million's like,
I think you start getting more anti-fragile when you're over 10 mil.
Because when I was young, I think, oh, if you get $1 million, then you hit $1 million, and you're like, fuck, I'm broke.
Yeah.
Then that's when you start having friends with real money. And you're like, damn, I'm broke.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes I think it's good to hang out with really rich friends. Like recently, I'm comfortable. Then recently been hanging out with like Dan Bilzerian, this other guy, Derek Moneyberg, I do business with. These guys are rich. And I'm like, all right, I need to jump to that next level. I want the private planes. It's good being around these people to motivate you, I think.
Inspiration's good.
Too comfortable.
Yeah, you never want to be the smartest guy in the room. You want to put yourself in rooms where there's more successful people all the time, because tides raise all ships, right?
Yeah, in all aspects, the one rich guy, he wanted to start learning fighting. So he hired like the best trainers in the world, despite even as a hobby, but he's taking it so serious, and it's crazy. He's gotten good in a couple of years, but he had the money, and he literally hired, like, I met him and then helped, I can't be all the time, and helped him hire a ton of other trainers, and he has like the best fighters in the world out there every week, like training them. So of course he's going to get good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But the best he said, he's like, well, you have to always put the best people around you. And being around him has made me be motivated and find ways to make more money, learning to invest. So it's like, it's a different field. You want to be around people who are great. And that happens a lot at the top, you notice. Like guys at the top kind of gravitate towards each other. That's
one of the mistakes I see a lot of guys make, is they surround themselves with mediocrity, right? Like I use the analogy of anchors in sails, right? You put a sail up, fills with the wind, it takes you to your next port of call. I think people in life are either anchors or sails. I think the vast majority of guys today are getting mediocre results because they're complacent and they're happy surrounding themselves with anchors that hold them back. And they have to be intentional in their life about separating themselves or keeping people at arm's length or distance that aren't doing the work on themselves, right? Because as you do better, as you ascend through the ranks of life and competency, and come to the realization that the value that comes along with that, you're gonna have to start putting some distance, between you and maybe friends that you've been friends with for 20 years. They're just not willing to do the work. They don't want to come along for the ride. That's okay. You got to move on.
A lot of times people will try to suck you down with them.
Yeah.
They don't want you to.
Anchors. Yeah, they'll just hold you back.
See, they're kind of resentful. You can feel it. Now, I have some friends that aren't doing great that I'm still great friends and will help them out. But there's other ones that you can see like resentment and they start trying to pull you down. You got to cut those people out of your life.
Yeah, the must be nice crowd. When you go and get the new car, they're like, "Oh, must be nice." It's like, yeah, it's nice. I did the work to get this.
No, exactly. You earned it. Some people feel like you didn't earn it, but if you work hard, you deserve what you get.
Yeah.
I think we're in a situation too where like it's definitely not easy to get rich, especially really rich, but it's fairly easy, like in America, probably Canada, to at least become a millionaire nowadays.
It's easier than any other time in history, if we're being completely honest. But again, like I've made the statement a number of times, you want to aim to be a millionaire by the time you're 30. If not, like if you miss that mark, do it by the time you're 40.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that kick and scream and cry, "Oh, Rich, you're so disconnected from reality. You don't know what's going on in the world. There's not enough money out there. Like all the rich people have it." It's like, you just keep telling yourself that story. If you want to keep watching that movie and seeing the same ending where you're still a loser, then that's where you're going to end up, man. But you got to walk away from that life. Like you have to hold yourself to higher standards.
Yeah, you got to work really hard, and also, like I said earlier, surround yourself by people with the same goals.
Yeah.
For example, of me, I'm not sure how much you follow fighting, but like I had surrounded myself with Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, Gil Melendez. We were all young and really poor, but we were all just determined to make it. No one else believed in this, but we just all decided we were going to be world champions. But when you're around other people that are pushing with those same goals, it's so much easier than doing them by yourself.
100%.
So it's just like, and like I said, I know so many people that grew up in poverty that are millionaires now. Now, it is hard jumping to like the 100 million levels.
Yeah.
That's still difficult.
Yeah. Going from 0 to a million is, your first mill is hard, but after that, you go from 1 to 10, it's okay. But from going from 10 to 100,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, for me, I was always laser focused on training. But yeah, more recently, the last like 2 years and stuff, started looking like, oh, I need to start learning business, and then realizing, oh, when you have a little money, you can actually start making money. That's when you can start investing, finding other things. You start knowing other rich people; they can give you advice or things, or working together. So once you're in that, it's easier to start raising up.
Yeah, money will make money, or people will make you money. So that either means run a business, or once you acquire wealth, and invest it wisely.
So let's switch back. Let's go to a few more of the you had the list of things that men should do to attract women. I'm trying to think of some of those were.
Yeah, competency, influence, wealth obviously matters. Masculinity is really like that's an easy one. Like just looking masculine, like having a broad shoulder to waist ratio.
Yeah,
it's a 1.62 ratio. Like shoulders to waist, and the vast majority of guys in the North American continent are overweight. They don't have that. They're shaped like a pear, and you can fix that very, very easily.
Oh, you mentioned
move more, eat better.
Exactly. It's not that hard. When people ask what to do, I'm like, just start walking to begin with.
Yeah.
Start lifting.
Yeah.
You don't need to start running. And you mentioned too, wear clothing that fit. We're both in shape. Why do you want like a baggy ass shirt if you're in shape?
Yeah. A tailored shirt, you can buy a nice tailored shirt for $180, decent one anyway. Right? It's a game changer versus the off the rack stuff that's all baggy, built for guys shaped like a pear, like the average American guy.
Yeah. When you say influence, do you mean like status, or what do you mean by that?
Influence is you're recognized when you walk in the room. You kind of move into a room where people are like, "Hey, who is that guy?" Like, there's something going on with him. People approach him, and "Hey, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while," sort of thing, right? Like, I recognize you, or I've seen your stuff, sort of thing. Like, that's what influence means. Like, basically having a little bit of reach. Like, women want to be with you, men want to be you, sort of thing. The more of that you have, the more that you recognize. Man, that's probably more powerful than money for sure.
I would think it's definitely more powerful than money for being, even being a small celebrity, and almost all my fans are men.
Yeah.
But it's still, girls still notice that men are coming over and treating you different.
Correct.
So they start seeing everyone's treating you different. You walk up, they open the door, they open there's no line for you. They open the club door, you walk through. A lot of times you get not waiting in line for drinks.
Do you ever get people that walk up to you in like a restaurant or something like that? "Hey, Jake, I've seen your stuff. I dig your whatever fights or your podcast, something like that." You ever get that?
Yeah.
You notice that the way that the server or the other women in the room sort of behave towards you, it changes. Like now they're all of a sudden interested. Like, who is that guy? I didn't know who he was before. Like, why is that person thanking him for something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll happen a lot. Well, one person will come up and someone else will recognize you, and the people that don't will start being like, "Oh, who are you?" They'll start treating you different. It's true. People treat you better. You can say it's unfortunate or not, but it's the truth. For the most part, I get treated a lot better overall in life than a lot of people do. And I've worked hard for it, but it's the truth. People can see.
You don't have to be famous to do that. Like, you know, you can just have a nice locale restaurant. Like there's a sushi place that I talk about in my book that's, you know, the owner treats me very well. I can call him on speakerphone right now and I can, you know, place an order for a pickup, calls me Mr. Cooper. He's very pleasant, respectful towards me. Can't wait to see you, sort of thing. You go in a restaurant, puts you at the best table, you know, let me get you, like that matters too, right? Like just
That matters a lot.
just having people treat you well and being respectful towards you, I mean, it doesn't force women to behave the same way, but people are like sheep, you know, they'll just sort of like toe the line and sort of be like, that's interesting. Why did he do that? Why is he, you know, giving this guy a little more respect than the last guy that I dated, sort of thing.
They notice that a lot. That's huge. And
It's
I know
small.
I know guys that aren't famous at all. They're just good with people, and they have those relationships, but they get treated better everywhere they go.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. You know, guys like you better, girls like you better. Just when people see you're gonna treat you better, people like that.
We've all got friends that know how to work a room. Like, watch what that guy does.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, I like to study people, you know, psychology, people that are so good with men, or the guys that are getting all the girls. I kind of watch and see what they do.
Yeah.
And you pick up little like, okay, that works. Obviously, you never want to copy someone exactly. You got to have your own feel, but you can kind of see what people do.
Yeah. Just stand upright, shoulders back, chest out, you know, look confident. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say status is one of the biggest ones. I think a perfect example of it is of, well, let's say if you're the best rock climber, all the rock climber girls are going to want you. The best example I can give is jiu-jitsu. That's the world I'm in. Me personally, I never would touch students. I think it's like not something you should do, but a lot of guys do. There's 3 cases, and a lot of jiu-jitsu trainers, unless they run the school or are famous, are broke, you know, but they're the high status guy in the gym. There's 3 trainers that the famous guy's wives left them for their jiu-jitsu trainer.
Yeah.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady's wife
Tom
did.
Brady,
Yeah.
what was the chef guy? Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's another famous golfer. I didn't know who he was, but apparently he was really big.
Just tough guy that knows how to fight.
This is just a jiu-jitsu trainer. None of these guys, I never heard of any of these guys. They probably weren't rich, famous, like none of that at all, but they just had status in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely true.
So guys can hack the system by becoming high status in some small
In
niche.
some realm of their world, something.
Yeah. And like those guys weren't even famous at all. They were just the guy at the gym.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Jobs famously said, you know, something along the lines about putting a dent in the universe. I mean, even if you put a little dent in a little corner of the universe that's recognized somewhere, it's going to change the way that people look at you, right?
And really, these things you get great at, you should do it for your own passion, not to like get women.
Correct.
But
It's nothing for women. Women are just a byproduct of all the success and the money.
I heard you say like, yeah, lead your own life, and you know, let the women follow. And that's 100%. My goal was fighting that women could follow or not. But they're gonna respect you a lot more if you're doing that than if you're like, oh, okay, but I'm gonna go meet you for this, instead of being like, no, I have training set.
Yeah.
Like this is what I'm doing. Women respect you way more when you're like that.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Always choose the ones that are already choosing you, right? It just makes your job easier.
Yeah, you never want to overchase. That's like, you know.
So the worst thing you do is chase women.
Yeah, when I was younger, my game was terrible, you know, and just looking back, it's just like embarrassing because I was too nice, too like pursuing, and then you're like, thankfully I figured out girls before I got fame, and then you get that, and then it's just like a game changer.
That's a lot of the conflicting stories that guys hear on social media and out there is like, you know, you get all these gals or these dating gurus and like, oh, you know, you got to chase women, you know, you got to really like wine and dine them sort of thing. You know, it's like, no, it's not. No, that doesn't work.
No.
I mean, you know, you want to catch fish, you don't ask the fisherman, you don't ask the fish, right?
Yeah, and I think it's funny too when you have like women giving dating advice. They really have no clue. They'll say what the guy they have the crush on, what they want him to do, not what he is doing.
Yeah, like that's the caveat, right? Is all the stuff that they're saying, but they're describing what they want the guy that they already like to do,
not what he's doing.
Right.
They're saying what the
guy
way he would do
that
it.
she's not attracted to. He can do all that stuff. It's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to be too. I'm nice, but you don't want to be too over the top. Like guy showing up with flowers. That's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah. Give her flowers when she deserves it, when she's earned it, when she truly loves you. You don't give her flowers so that she loves you.
Yeah, same. I mean, unless you have no game, never buy girls stuff early unless they deserve it. You
Correct.
know? Even if you have a lot of money, like I would never like buy girls expensive gifts unless they really deserved it.
Yeah, we're living interesting times today because now we got a lot of women that, you know, through the function of dating apps or whatever and cash apps and all this sort of stuff. I've seen a lot of guys that'll get messages almost immediately where she'll just move from let's go out on a date to I can't pay my rent or I got some money issues or something like that or my car's getting repossessed and they're looking to finagle money out of the guy like right away.
Yeah.
It's like, bye.
Yeah, the fact that guys fall for that is just pathetic. The simps.
Yeah.
It's like I despise the simps more than like the OnlyFans girls and stuff.
They're a big part of the problem. I mean, you wouldn't have the entitlement that you have today with a lot of these women if you didn't have simps. I mean, OnlyFans is incredible. Like they just published a stat a couple of weeks ago, something along the lines of OnlyFans creators have generated $2 billion more than what the NFL has spent on payroll. That's insane.
That's insane.
That's insane. Like there's a lot of guys that are emptying their bank accounts in the hopes that a woman that they're strongly attracted to, that hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of other guys are also strongly attracted to, will one day touch their pee-pee.
Yeah, it's really sad. And even more sad is, I don't know if it's more sad, but the guys, any of these big accounts don't run their own account. I know guys that run the agencies.
Yep.
They're either using guys to pretend like they're girls, or they're using AI now.
Yeah.
So they're not even like talking to a real girl. It's
Correct.
These guys are pathetic.
And they don't know the difference. And they're emptying their bank accounts.
I think it's awful for the girls.
Some of them are even married too. Like they're in relationships, and it's like family wealth. They're just taken away from their family and their kids and giving it to some thought somewhere.
Yeah, it's just truly pathetic. I really don't know much to say about that.
Yeah.
I think I never go to the strip clubs. We ended up going last night because Frank Gordon was in town, and we're like, he was wearing shorts, couldn't get to the club, so we went and stopped by a strip club. They were not that hot, the girls there. I think maybe more girls were like on OnlyFans and sugar daddies and stuff now. Like the talent was all like just mid.
Yeah, I've been to a strip club in a while. Last time I went, they were pretty gross.
Yeah, like they're gross. See, I think these pay these girls to dance on me. No thanks, I'll pass.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, before we switch it up, is there what other things you think are big for men to attract women? I think a lot of men are totally clueless and just do the wrong thing.
They just
here's one.
Yeah.
Don't be a pushover.
Yeah,
Use
don't
your
be a
bullet,
pushover.
but
Have a backbone.
You should lead. You need to lead. Tell her no sometimes.
Yeah, it's like a lot of guys will be like, well, what do you want to do on the date? And it's like women just want to be told wear the dress in picture number 3. I'm going to pick you up at 8, and I'm going to surprise you, and that's it. That's it.
Strongly agree. Always plan the date.
Yeah.
Don't like start asking them, where do you want to go? Just
and if you're going down to
to
subsequent ones, it's like give them instructions. Like, hey, I'm going to be making this for dinner. Do me a solid and go over to the liquor store and pick up this bottle of wine for me, right? Like give them a task to do, and see if they follow it, sort of thing. So it changes as sort of the dating moves through the different cycles, and I talk about all those details in the book, of course. But like being able to lead the relationship, and women like. It's so weird because women have been told to lead in life, to be a boss girl, #boss girl, sort of thing. Lead, make money, have the car, the home, the decoration, all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the relationship, they want the guy to take care of you. They want the guy to lead. When there's a bang in the night, you got to get out of bed and deal with the guy downstairs. It's like broken into the house. She's not going to deal with it. You're not going to be like, well, it's your turn because of feminism, sort of thing. It's, you have to be able to lead the relationship and be the guy. And the problem is guys have been told not to do that, and women have been told, well, men and women are equal. So that's why we have all these problems right now, in the dating world, right? It's just a total colossal mess.
Yeah, almost every woman wants the man to lead. They don't want to be weak.
Yeah.
Women will even shit test guys where they'll like do little. I've had girls tell me they'll start like pushing him to see if he'll keep doing things. Then they lose respect for him because he keeps doing everything they asked to do, and she's wanting to be like, no, I'm not going to keep being bullied by you.
Yeah. It's funny. I was on a backwoods camping trip earlier this year, and the guide was telling us about some of his experiences leading like families and couples into the woods, right? And there's no cell phones, there's no lights, nothing, right? And I'm like, so what happens with these couples when you take them out? He goes, it's really interesting because when I start processing wood to make a campfire, you got to take down the tree, you got to split it, you got to, set it up, you got to get the tinder, all that sort of stuff. And he goes, it's really funny because the wives of the girlfriends a lot of time will be like, see, Jeff, you can do it like that, like follow what he does because they're hopeful that he'll take the lead, right? The guy's never taken down a tree, he's never started a fire, he's like, he doesn't know how to do any of these things. And she sees a random guy that they've hired to guide them through the woods, and she's hot for him now.
That's like the jiu-jitsu thing. Like I said, you never want to bring. I see this all the time. Guys will bring their hot girlfriends or wives into jiu-jitsu where they totally suck, and they see these competent guys, and it goes to all kinds of fields. When they see someone's extremely competent at something and their man isn't, it's not a good look. I tell guys, if you're gonna do that, you better get good at jiu-jitsu first before you do that.
Before you bring the girl in.
Otherwise, you're making a big
You better
mistake.
win.
People get mad at me. People in jiu-jitsu community get mad at me. It's like, I'm just being nice, warning people.
Yeah, there's that famous clip that keeps getting reused on my Twitter. I can't remember the girl's name, but there's a clip of her talking to Joe Rogan, and she's describing what happens when her boyfriend lost a match, and she completely lost it for him. She's like, I didn't even like the guy after that. I broke up with him.
Yep, I know that girl. She's one of those girls that hopped around from fighter to fighter, and so why would you? That's why I would never touch these fighter chicks. And then
women wait at the finish line, and they pick the winner.
And she even admitted it right there on camera that I was disgusted when I saw him get knocked out. And it didn't last long after that. Broke up with him, and this is both girls won't say it openly, but it's like, they don't want to. You don't want to look weak to your woman. You need to look strong. These guys think, it's okay to like cry and be sensitive.
Don't cry on your shoulder. Cry to your boys if you got a problem, right? Like the only time that you can cry to a woman, family member dies, your dog dies. That's it.
I agree.
That's it.
That's the only two times.
And get over it quick.
People get mad at me for like saying that on Twitter too. Like, how should that be controversial?
Yeah.
People say, no, they want a sensitive woman.
Nope.
I cry at my wife. I'm like, okay, she's probably cheating on you.
Yeah, women do not love soft, sensitive crybabies.
No, they
at
want a
all.
strong man because they need you to lead them. So if you're
Yeah.
like crying and can't hold it together, then how are you going to lead?
Yeah. What are you going to do? You're going to come home from work? Oh, Brenda from HR was mean to me today, and
Mhm.
cry to your wife? She doesn't want to hear that crap.
No, it's our job to be tough and hold it together.
Figure it out.
It's a tough world, you know. It is what it is, but we have to accept it.
It's
Yeah.
a man's purpose.
No, we some guys want to bitch and cry about it, and it's not fair. But
Yeah.
this is the world we live in.
Yeah, you got to figure it out. Burden of performance is on your shoulder as a man.
Yeah.
Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. A man is only loved under the condition that he is useful in life. I think that was Chris Rock.
No, it's. I think that was yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so true. And men, instead of bitching about that, you better accept it because you bitch and cry about it. That ain't going to get you anywhere. And girls, you know, they can sometimes just born with beauty and coast through life, but that's how it goes.
Yeah.
They have things too they have to worry about. You know, like staying more pure and this type of stuff.
But they don't consider that.
No, they do. Yeah, no, exactly. A lot of times they don't. We'll get into that in a second. Like
Yeah.
that and the red flags. Any more before we switch up of the things that are important?
Yeah, there's lots. I
Scratch?
mean, grab the book and dig through it, but those would be the main ones for sure, right?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of the ones that I think are extremely important. There's tons of like little ones, but just that's the really important stuff.
Yeah.
Let's get into something that's really, really important. Red flags. I've actually never really. I have good instincts with people, so I think I was naturally doing a lot of the things you said, but I never really thought about it. But just red flags is crucial because there are a lot of good women out there. But there's a lot of trash women out there.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not negative towards women like some of these red pill guys because
Yeah.
I've had good, for the most part, I've had a few bad experiences. For the most part, good experiences with women.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to read through them and cut out the red flags.
Yeah, you got to sort. You're gonna have to dig through a lot of dirt to find gold. I hate to put it that way,
Exactly.
but that's the reality of dealing with the opposite sex, and it's it's the same thing for women too. So I compiled this list of 21 red flags. I could probably book a entire 300-page book and call it like the 100 red flags, but I wanted to narrow it down to really like the main one sort of thing. And what I did was I kept copious notes from people calling in and from my one-on-one coaching clients. It's like these were consistently the things that showed up over and over again. So, for example, one of the big red flags is inviting a single mom in your life, right? A lot of guys that had booked me for private consults, very wealthy, successful guys, worth well into 8 figures, business owners, athletes, like known people. And they would make the common mistake of inviting a woman into their life, marrying them, having maybe more children with them, that brought kids in tow, sometimes from different fathers, from prior relationships. And it's like, you can have a relationship with that girl. You can marry her, you can have a family with her, but you're going to have more problems with her than the one that doesn't have that baggage. And that's harsh to say, to call it baggage, but it's true. Women are very discerning in their taste. Like, they often disqualify single dads. I'm sure you've run into that yourself when you're single dating too,
Myself, not really, because I was high status. The girls didn't really seem to. I think a lot of times girls were just thinking they're going to use me, but then they'd fall for me.
Yeah.
When you're a fighter, they're just like, I would think it was a joke. Girls are just using for sex, and one day I'm like, wait, maybe
There's a trump
maybe
card
they were
then.
thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather be being used than the guy, guy not getting cheated on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, be that guy.
But yeah, no, I feel a little bad with the one you're saying, but it's true. I never dated a single mom.
Yeah.
I don't think I would. It's unfortunate 'cause I feel bad for those girls trying to take care of their kids, but it's a big problem. Especially you can't really discipline the kids. That'd be the hard one on me because if I'm around kids, that kid has to be well mannered, has to obey me, and that would be difficult.
Yeah, that's a good point. So if you're gonna cuckold yourself, essentially, you're putting yourself in a position where you have responsibility to another man's child, but you generally don't have the authority.
Yeah.
And when you have responsibility without authority, you're essentially a slave, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a good position to put yourself in. And there's certain circumstances where it might be wise or a better choice to deal with a single mom. And I talk about that towards the end of the chapter in the book. But there's a lot of red flags that you got to be cognizant of. Like, another one would be like a woman that's got an addictive personality. She loves shopping, right? It's like, if you're going to marry a woman, you think about having a family, raising children together, and she's constantly buying crap, or she's buying stuff and returning it and trying it out. It's like, she'll go to the store and buy 5 lampshades and try all 5 out and then take 4 back, sort of thing. And that's how she spends her time. Well, you're going to be spending your entire relationship with her addictions, whether it's the TV shows like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, and she's all like hooked on all this social media stuff, or what's happened in the Kardashian world, or whoever's trending. Like, you got to be very, very careful when you invite a chick in your world, because it's the most important decision you make. Most guys will spend more time researching the fuel economy of the next car and how much trunk space that the car has, comparing it to the entire lineup of other models out there, rather than vetting a chick that he's going to invite into his life. It's like the first girl that touches their pee-pee is usually their vetting process for most guys.
Yeah, and I recommend guys that have the ability to, when they're single, they should be dating several women at once.
Absolutely.
Figuring out, going through, seeing the red flags, then you can kind of narrow out till you really
Cream
like
rises
one.
to the top. Becomes obvious, right?
Yeah, it seems like the smart thing to do. Sometimes people are critical of that, but it seems like why not? Why not date several women and figure out? Then you start saying, okay, this one has red flags, cut her out, and then you eventually is what happens. You generally, you like one of them, or you get rid of all of them and get a new batch.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because that's a tool right out of her toolbox, right? Like that's what women do naturally is they'll date multiple guys simultaneously and they'll pick the best that they can get. Like that's what hypergamy is, right? Like they're picking the best guy that they can lock down.
Yeah, it's what a lot of guys don't realize. Even when they're dating a girl, they're still keeping their spares around. That's why you never let your girl have guy friends.
Never let her have guy friends. No girls trips over the weekend. None of that stuff. That's done when she's like, "Hey, Jake, where do we stand? Like, where's this going?"
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I dig your vibe too, but I can't take a woman seriously that takes girls trips on vacations, right?
Yeah, guys will say like, "Oh, you can't say this type of stuff, be trolling." But a relationship is about you guys decide what the rules are. If she doesn't want to follow it, she can walk. It's not being controlling. You're saying what your rules are. If she doesn't want to follow it,
that's a boundary that I have. If you don't like it, that's cool. You know, no harm, no foul.
The friends one's just absolutely crucial because I can't believe like back at the peak of my fame, I'm like living in a penthouse and there'd be girls hanging out. I usually wouldn't know who. There's so many girls coming in and out. I didn't know who had boyfriends. Didn't. Every now and again, some girl would be on a phone. Oh, but be quiet real quick. Calls her boyfriend. Oh, I'm at my friend Jake's house. I'm just like, so you're telling your boyfriend you're a UFC fighter's house hanging out and we're just friends. Could you imagine some girl you're dating?
You just finished smashing and she's calling her boyfriend.
Yeah, could you imagine some girle you're dating being like, I'm some UFC or hockey, what's big there?
He's like, yeah, have fun. I'll see you tomorrow or whatever.
And he's like, she trusts me. I'm just like, what the?
Yeah.
That was such a crazy wake-up call to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's wild when you start to see like the code in the Matrix and you see what women are actually capable of.
Yeah.
All women are capable of that, by the way. It's like, there's always these, she's a good girl. No, there's good girls and bad girls, but the good girls are just, they're just not caught yet, basically.
Yeah, and there's some that'll actively go out and try to do it, but the other ones that'll fall into it. That's why you don't allow them to put themselves in that situation.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's some terrific women out there, but you have to set boundaries around how you're going to deal with women. If you can't do that, you're going to get run through. Yeah,
if you're letting your girl go to a UFC fighter or NFL player's apartment and hang out alone, she's probably cheating.
Yeah.
So
my friend Jake.
Sorry if any guys is watching this and your girlfriend said she was a friend.
Yeah.
I apologize. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
young and dumb. But it's just, people are insane that they allow their girls to have like
guy friends.
They're like hanging out, going to their houses at night and stuff. It's just like, this is baffling to me.
Yeah. The whole guy friend thing, a woman that surrounds herself with a lot of dudes, it's funny because they'll be like, oh no, we're just friends. Like, there's nothing going on there sort of thing. Like we've been friends for the past 10 years or something like that. I'm like, give me your phone. Why?
Yeah.
Give me your phone because I'm going to text him right now. I'm going to say, I'm horny. Let's bang. Watch what he does.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And girls often, they keep an extra man around.
Yeah.
Guys they usually try to keep one or two guys for like spares, even when
backup
they're dating,
plan,
unless they really like the guy they're dating. Like backups around.
I've had a few girls say to me, hey, if I don't have a kid by the time I'm 30, I'm definitely going to have a kid. I'm like, okay, so what's the plan? It should be like, I'm looking at it. Really? Yeah. That's your plan. Like, you think I'm just going to knock one out for you? Come on.
Yeah, because I think guys, we don't really, we look at it looking for sex. We're not looking like, oh, my backup girlfriends.
Yeah.
But girls look at it instead of sex, like, oh, maybe I could date this guy. That's my friend. Maybe I could date this guy.
When they get to the overt place, it gets very interesting.
And some guys are just completely clueless of this, and you better not be.
Well, we've been taught to be clueless. We've been taught to be bumbling fools, right? I mean, if you grew up in any kind of sitcoms like I did, like The Cosby Show or Home Improvement or anything like that, the father was always portrayed as a bumbling moron. Mom always made fun of everything. The kids ran the show, and he was just the butt of all jokes. Even like marketing, commercials for like a cleaning product. Hey, mom is a husband, a total nerd, loser, incompetent. You need this product, and it'll solve all your problems, right? And it's like guys are used as the butt of all jokes for everything now, and nobody says anything, nobody does anything, right? They just sort of go along with it.
Yeah, I've talked about this before too. Yeah, they just push it. They make men the joke, the women the leaders, and again, it seems like it's a deliberate attack on men and manhood. They want us weak. I guess you can't do a revolution if you're just a buffoon following your woman. Yeah.
Well, a weak, compliant, agreeable population of men is what votes for big, agreeable government. That people don't want freedom. They don't want independence. They don't want accountability. They want free stuff.
Yeah. Which, it's crazy to me. Another really important one you put in there was violent women.
Yeah.
Stay away from violent women.
Yeah. I'll tell you the story about this gal that I dated once. We're sitting outside having a coffee, and she was talking about stuff like, tell me some stories about this and that. And then out of nowhere she goes, "You ever been in the back of a cop car?" And I'm like, "That's a very interesting question. Why would you ask that?" And then I paused. I'm like, "Wait, have you ever been in the back of a cop car?" And then she told me the story, and it was like, she told me this convoluted story about how she got locked out of her boyfriend's house and she threw a log through the front window and the cops and blah, blah, blah. It's like, right from there, I was like, forget it. Like, this is not even worth it. She's probably crazy in the bedroom, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah, crazy chicks are usually good in bed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's not worth it. Especially me being a UFC fighter, if they get a domestic violence thing, obviously no one's going to believe me. Yeah. So the few times that girls hit me, I'm just like, no, they're cut out for gone.
Yeah.
They're cut out.
Yeah. The first thing that you should do, by the way, guys, if you deal with a violent woman, you take your cell phone, you turn on video, you hold it up to your chest, put your hand out to indicate in the video that you're backing out of the room. No, not interested. Back away. Calm down. At least you got video evidence to protect yourself.
Excellent advice. My friend just had that happen to him, and luckily had it on video.
Yeah.
This girl was attacking him, and then she went and like accused him of like domestic violence, but he was showing she was attacking him, punching him, trying to break in the house, and he had it all on video. So her charges, so he got dropped. But if not, he probably would have been in jail. And this guy's a very successful businessman, like been in big trouble.
And a false DV charge in a divorce proceeding, like if you got to untie the knot, it is a trump card that women can use to really change the vector, like the direction of the divorce, the access you have to your kids. All of this stuff. So you got to be very, very careful with violent women. They're just not worth it. They're not worth friends with benefits. It's just not worth it. Stay away from them.
No, it's not good at all. You know, and anything, if you're all successful or famous, you can get like fired or screwed for even if you're innocent, domestic violence. Like especially being a fighter, no one's going to believe you. They're gonna be like, oh, he's a fighter, he's violent. Yeah. Which most fighters actually are less violent. Is the funny part. But, but no one's going to believe that. So the couple times girls hit me, I'm like, no, they're done.
Yeah, that's it. Bye.
Yeah, it's
Bye,
not
Felicia.
worth it. And way more girls hit men than the opposite. I think
it's true. Lesbian relationships are more violent than opposite sex.
Yeah. And it's like, it doesn't really hurt when a girl hits you, but still, it makes you mad, and you just don't want that in your head.
Yeah,
like, what if you snap and like smack her back? Then, I'm going to jail.
Right.
My career's ruined.
Yeah.
It's just not worth putting that in your life.
Turn on the video camera, back out of the room, hand out, calm down, relax. Why are you doing this? Come on, relax. You know.
Another one you mentioned, I'd actually never really thought about it, had it in mind, but then I thought about all the girls I dated. You said don't date girls with daddy issues. I thought about all the girls that dated, and I'm like, okay, all the ones that are serious didn't have daddy issues. The crazy ones that I was like, messing around with, a lot of those did. So that was interesting. I feel a little bad about that one because they didn't have their dads there, but that's actually an interesting thing to look for.
Yeah, it's tough because, I mean, you do feel bad about them because like guys are inherently wanting to save and protect women anyway.
Exactly.
It's kind of in us. But, I mean, if she had an absent father, he was a piece of furniture, mom pushed him out of the household, he was a piece of crap. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if she has a strong distaste for men, she doesn't respect masculinity and men, doesn't want to be led, and she was perhaps led in such a way as a child where women are strong and independent and they need a man like a fish needs a bicycle. You're gonna have a hard time leading that relationship. Like if she didn't respect her father, why is she gonna respect you? Think about that.
Yeah. I would say there's probably exceptions on that. Like if a girl's showing all the
she's
great
done the
signs,
work.
So I wouldn't say like automatically, oh, you don't have a dad, or cut the girl out. But
sniff it out.
Something you should probably look
like
for.
if she acknowledges that she's got the problem, she's done the work, she's talked to a therapist, she sort of worked through it, and it's not really an issue. Sure, but like watch the behavior. Don't listen to what she says. Watch how she behaves in certain situations. A real good test is just say no and see what she does. Like if she asks you to do something or she wants something, and if you say no and she throws a hissy fit and has a meltdown, and my dad did that to my mom and blah blah blah, and they start pulling all, forget it.
Always watch what they do, not what they say. That's
Correct.
crucial in all relationships. Men too. Watch people do, not what they say.
Yeah.
People can tell you anything, but their behavior is what matters.
Yeah, that applies to women, friends, work, colleagues, business transactions, all that stuff.
Yeah,
watch what people do.
On the book I read, don't ask a girl a body count. I couldn't agree more. When guys ask a girl body count, that's like so retarded. They're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. Yeah. You can kind of get ideas other ways. I mean, a lot of times girls will offer it to you. Who knows if that's true? Yeah. But you watch for other signs, what their friends are like, their certain types of behaviors. Yeah. Yeah, you're not getting it from what especially if you're asking.
Yeah. How she spent her, her time, before you met her. Like if you meet a girl, it's like, 30, 35, and she's like, I spent my 20s mostly single, traveling Europe, and I backpacked through blah, blah, blah sort of thing. And, she's been with a lot of guys. I mean, you can ask her if you want. She'll probably volunteer some number, but any number she's going to volunteer, you can pretty much double it anyway, because they don't really count infractions. Like they'll remember the guy that she was pining for, that she was in love with, the guy that dumped her, the guy that she was in a 4-year relationship. Like she'll count that, but she forgets the one-night stands, the lesbian encounters, the threesomes of what happened in Vegas that one time, what happened in Ibiza at the phone cannon party at 4 o'clock in the morning. She doesn't count that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't count the lesbian ones either. That's okay, particularly if I'm involved. But unfortunately, those girls are always crazy, though.
Yeah, they're
usually
crazy in the head, crazy about it.
Yeah, but then they're usually not the ones you want. There may be some exceptions, but generally the ones bringing you home girls aren't the ones you want to marry either, unfortunately.
Yeah, generally not. Yeah, unfortunately.
But yeah, so what's a few more red flags before we move on?
Well, okay, so here's a controversial one. Tattoos. I know that some guys have a strong preference for women that are tatted up, and I think that it's a masculine pursuit. It's a masculine trait. I think women that like put a lot of tattoos on their bodies, especially the odd ones where it's like a sticker book where they randomly like put different tattoos in different places. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it shows a lack of class, in my opinion. When it's like putting bumper stickers all over a Ferrari. A woman is a thing of beauty. Like, the curves and everything on them are just attractive and beautiful, and guys get that part. And as soon as you start putting things on that, there's that problem. But you also have to remember this: they're sitting in a chair for hours at a time, while another man, and Elliot Hulse brought this up to me when I was talking to him. He goes, another man is sitting there penetrating her over and over and over again. And he's like, that's disgusting. And I'm like, when you sit there and think about it. And the other thing too is, I had a couple of guys that called it on my podcast, and they were both tattoo artists, and they said the exact same thing. They sleep with a lot of women that come into their studio. So they're generally very promiscuous, right? Like, if they're sitting there in a chair and they're talking to a guy and he's penetrating her over and over again, they tend to be very slutty, generally speaking.
Yeah, I would agree, but there are some exceptions when they come.
There can be
really
some
hot.
exceptions.
There's been a couple really hot. There's one girl that had like face tats and looked extremely hot, but it wasn't someone I wanted to marry.
Yeah,
so that still checks out.
Do you want to bring a gal around a family, the holidays, or around your kid, for example, that's made some bad choice? I mean, do you want your daughter covering herself up with tattoos?
No.
Like, these are questions that you got to ask yourself, right? Is she going to look good on your arm if you're at an event and there's a lot of professionals around and she's wearing like a nice dress and she's got exposed tattoos? I mean, if that's your thing, maybe. I just find it has a lack of class.
Yeah, and you got to look, if you're serious with them, what kind of mother is she going to be? You got to ask yourself these type of questions. And if she's not being a good example for herself, she's probably not going to teach her kid well.
I mean, tattoos generally aren't a good example. Most women I've found over the long term that I've talked to have had serious regrets, and they try to remove them over time. So if they can't make conscious, clear decisions, I mean, it's not a good idea. I mean, there's one exception where I talk about in the book where you can do the tattoo test and she tattoos your name on her body, or whatever. I mean, that's the only thing that I would say is okay.
I think most rules have exceptions. People need to realize when you say something, it doesn't mean it's 100%. It's just in most cases. So there's always like exceptions to the red flag thing, but they're things you generally should look for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other ones you think are worth mentioning?
Those would be the main ones: violent, daddy issues, feminists for sure. Okay, so let's talk about like feminist women. If you're a strong masculine man, like if you're the kind of guy that's like, Jake and I, and you want to get into a relationship with a gal, if you're going to deal with a woman that has strong left-leaning feminist values, you're going to have a lot of difficulties with her. She doesn't respect men. She thinks that she's oppressed. She hates patriarchy. And if you're going to be the oppressor, then she's got to be a victim, right? And, the victim's always going to have something to complain about. It's just going to be a difficult relationship to be in, and it's just not fun. And like I said this at the opening of the chapter, you can have a relationship with these guys. They can be your girlfriend. You can wife them up. You can put children in them. But you're going to have a better time as a guy. You're going to have a better experience with a woman if she doesn't have these red flags.
With that one, I partially disagree. I think if you're a strong man and lead, there's a good chance she'll switch her opinions. If she doesn't switch, then I 100% agree with you. But a lot of times, in a couple months, if you just kind of laugh at them and like make fun of them being a silly little feminist and and lead, they'll realize they were being stupid and change their ways.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about women is they tend, like, if they genuinely like you, if they genuinely have burning desire for you, they will adopt your musical taste. They will adopt your political taste. They will adopt your culinary taste.
Yeah,
they will learn how to cook if you like a woman that knows how to cook. But if she's a strong feminist woman, it's very difficult to modify that behavior. So you have to go back to spinning plates, dating multiple women simultaneously. You see it as a potential red flag. You address it. You see what the behavior looks like. And if it changes and it modifies and she adopts your tastes and flavors in life, good. If she doesn't, then you have a decision to make.
Yeah, and the feminists I've dated probably were like very minorly feminist, not like hardcore.
Not short purple hair, 300 pounds.
Not that,
Okay.
yeah. The funny part is sometimes those girls are like attracted to guys like us. That's what's ridiculous.
Well, they all are at the end of the day. And if we're being honest, all women, like not some, all women are feminists. It's just to what degree.
Yeah.
Right. Like even the very soft, feminine looking women that you see that, want to cook for you and want to please you and daddy and all that sort of stuff, they still have a little bit of feminism in them.
Yeah, but the funny thing is a lot of these women, like, I lived most of my life in San Francisco, New York. I'm obviously more extremely controversial, right-leaning. That didn't hurt at all. You think it would, but I think a lot of girls actually like when guys say stuff that are totally ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, you'll see the feminists leave their body when they're hanging out with Jake Shields.
Yeah, well, sometimes they might get like mad and argue, but it doesn't. But I think they prefer a guy telling them, instead of just always agreeing with them, telling them something, especially in San Francisco, no one would be like back in the time, like, oh, yeah, I voted for Trump like 2016. So they're so not used to hearing that, like shocks them. But they can appreciate people that think for themselves and are different.
Yeah, I remember years ago when Trump was up and coming in 2015 or something like that. I was having I was on a date with this girl, and she's talking about politics and something like that. And I mentioned Trump, and she lost it. And I was just like, I don't really care what you think. I mean, you can go home if you want.
Exactly. I think a lot of times if you tell them that, I've had times, dates, all of a sudden you're arguing, yelling at you. The next thing you know, they're passionately kissing you.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the ups and downs. I never do that deliberately, but they definitely could work.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be fun in the short term, but long term, you got to be careful with that.
No, if the girl doesn't modify her behavior, then I would definitely get rid of her. But a lot of times within a few months, they would modify their behavior because they'll start adapting your beliefs, your politics.
Yeah.
If you look at voting, most single girls are Democrat. Most married girls start voting, with their husband's vote.
Women are like water. Like they will take the shape and form of the vessel that they're in, right?
Yeah.
Good women will anyway.
Yes. But you also have to be leading and strong.
Right.
They have to respect you.
You got to be a strong vessel. Yeah.
That's why it goes back. You need to make sure you have that in check. Otherwise, these girls aren't going to respect you.
Yeah.
So, any other worth mentioning before we?
Well, let's do this. Let's just keep moving on. So if you guys want to get the red flag chapter, if I can shout out, it's entrepreneursandcars.com/red-flags. It's totally free. You can download the chapter there. Even better, grab the book.
Yep. Do you have other books you've written or just that one?
I've got a bunch of other books on Amazon from the debt settlement world when I was running that business, but I'm going to write a follow-up book to the Unplugged Alpha, more along the lines of becoming the Unplugged Alpha and then maintaining that sort of frame and the status. Because a lot of guys will like start to see the code in the matrix and be like, okay, so I see the work that needs to be done and I'm starting to understand things. Like, how do I maintain that now over the long term?
Yeah.
So that'll probably be the content in the follow-up.
Yeah, and you mentioned being unplugged, like COVID and stuff too, that you can just see through this stuff when you're unplugged. That, like, you got to. It's not just women. It's understanding.
It's everything.
It's understanding how the world works.
It's everything. Like it's not about women. Like women should not be the focus. They should not be the goal. I know that it is for a lot of guys because they struggle with it. But good, beautiful, feminine women that are a complement to your life, not the focus, are a byproduct of a guy that's on a purpose in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't. Like I said, you can teach game. That'll help a little bit. But it's also about making yourself a better man.
That's all that the manosphere, will focus on is like game and pickup artistry and memorize these lines. And that gets guys in a lot of trouble. I've seen guys thrown in jail. I've seen a lot of problems because they just follow memorizing lines. And like, you can't fake it.
No, maybe one time you'll bring a girl home, but they're not going to respect you. It's just so cheesy. That's why sometimes I kind of make fun of like
they're dorks
manosphere
mostly.
guy. Yeah, most of them are dorks and don't actually understand what women like. You hear some of the things they're saying, like, these guys are idiots. They don't understand women.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed about a lot of the guys in manosphere is not a lot of them had something going on before they fell into that space. Like I kind of got sucked into it. I was an entrepreneur, already had success, cool cars in life and all that sort of stuff. But it's like a lot of them didn't have anything going on. Like they were taxi drivers or they were running from the law or something like that. And it's like they figured out that guys want to get girls and, they figured out what gets girls and they did pickup artistry and like cold approaches and all that sort of stuff. And they start training people to do stuff. It's like, if you're a dork that knows how to like game women and do cold approach and talk to them, you're still a dork at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. You're going to get laid a lot more than the dork that doesn't cold approach.
Yeah, you're just a dork that gets laid now.
But you're still a dork. You're not going to be able to keep a girl.
Yeah, like have you fixed the weight problem? Have you fixed the insignificance problem? Have you fixed your money problems, right?
Yeah,
Are you interesting?
Yeah, be in shape, be interesting, hold good conversations. I think it's so crucial. These are the important things that these guys don't talk about.
Yeah, so be careful with that stuff.
Yeah, so I saw I was looking at some of your interviews and saw you were friends with my friend Myron. That's I think you said he was one of you're one of his mentors, correct?
Yeah, he was a mentee in my community years ago before he started the podcast. So he's done really well. So good for Myron.
Yeah, he's blown up. I've only known him maybe a little over a year, but great. He's been so helpful. Such a good guy. I've never needed anything. He's on it right away. Just such a helpful. He can be a little extreme on the show, like yelling at girls and stuff. It's kind of funny, but like in person, just the nicest.
Well, he's animated, which works well for video.
Yeah. That's you got to go what sells, and he's great at that.
He's really good at it. Yeah, shut up.
Now he's doing a lot of political stuff as well, so I think he's a talented guy.
Yeah.
How did you guys come in?
He came into my community, so I don't know. I think he was looking for mentorship or something like that. This is 2016 or 17 or something like that. I was telling you earlier, like we'd have Zoom calls with like 20, 30 guys on it. He was one of the guys there, and he still had his like Fed like bulletproof jacket behind him and his gun on the table, sort of thing. And he just finished work. So that's how I came across him, and he just wanted to start a podcasting, and he quit his job, and he's doing great at it. So good for him.
Yeah, I think he's one of the biggest ones, at least for the man.
He's big in the space, yeah. Bigger than me now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't know some of these terms mean. People call them red pill. I'm like, I don't think I'm red pill. I don't really know what that means. I mean, I like women for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to stay away from like calling anything red pilled now because it has such a bad connotation. A lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth, because of it. Like you are definitely red pilled, but I wouldn't be going around going, hey, I'm red pilled sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's just like all how you look at it. Some people think it's like, oh, you hate women. No, I don't hate women. I have boundaries. I expect a lot from them. I'm not going to get walked over. It's
Yeah.
like, but I have
Saying
boundaries.
no and having
Yeah.
boundaries is not hating women. It's
No.
just setting boundaries and saying no to certain things that you're not willing to participate in.
And yeah, all my friendships are like that too.
Yeah.
I treat people great if they treat me good.
Yeah.
Everything's a two-way street. So if a
Yeah.
girl's not respecting me, I'm not gonna, if like girls showing up like late and stuff, I'm like, why are you late? This is not the time. And too many guys are just like allow girls to like walk all over them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
yeah, let's switch it up real quick. Let's go back to Canada. So
Okay.
are you a big Trudeau fan?
Yeah, huge fan. No, I'm not a fan of Trudeau. I really don't know how he's been elected so many times back to back now. I'm hoping that things will change the next election next year. The Canadian government and politics in Canada is just a colossal train wreck, right? Like we have a massive country of natural resources. Like we have the third largest oil reserves in the world. After Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Russia, for example, we've got massive oil reserves. We have minerals, we have forestry, we have also the highest tax rates in the world. I said this on social media today. Like, how is it that a country like Saudi Arabia or Dubai, for example, has the lowest tax rates in the world? They have better infrastructure, better policing, cleaner cities, better roads. Everything is well ordered and in line. And in Canada, you're paying 56% of your income in taxes in total. Plus, you're paying taxes on taxes after that when you're getting gas and when you're getting capital gains and all that sort of stuff. And we have all these natural resources and they're not willing to touch them because they think the world is burning down or carbon footprint, this and that. It's like Canada is absolutely, it's a wonderful country that's absolutely stunning and beautiful with natural beauty run by idiots.
Yeah, I know. I love Canada, like the people and stuff there, but it seems like it's worse than America even.
Yeah, and like the
major
wokeness
decline.
there, it's insane. The federal government keeps passing all of these ridiculous laws, like we have to put tampons in men's bathrooms in federal buildings. For what? For what exactly?
It's idiocracy.
DEI?
Yeah, and people are going to act like that's normal. It's just not. We don't need tampons
Yeah.
and the sports they did. They're having men fighting women's sports now.
Makes no sense. Like men are beating the crap out of women because they can't compete with men. Like what's that about?
There's some film that's just came out. I think it's called Unfightable or something. They brought me in as the bad guy. They're trying to make this tranny as the hero, and I'm the only one coming on there speaking sense. It's like as soon as they interviewed me, the producers had no answers, so I'm sure it can't make me look bad. I saw a little clip the other day. Like I'm supposed to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I'm the only one making sense in the film. Like how are you going to allow a dude to beat up women?
The people that get it will get it, and they'll support you. The ones that don't, they don't support you anyway. To the point of the DI stuff. So I've got this client that I was coaching, and he runs a business that bids on government contracts in Canada. So to do that now, you have to have a certain DI quota. So he has to go and hire people based on their identity, skin color, what they identify of, whatever, right? So
ridiculous.
So he gets these people to bid on these contracts, and then he finds that they're the worst employees he's ever had. They call in sick all the time. They're late. They only work long enough so they can collect unemployment benefits because they claim that they're stressed or something like that. They're incompetent. So it's a double-edged sword. Like he's running a business where if he bids on government contracts, he has to have DEI quotas, but the DEI quotas give him the crappiest employees, so he can't perform the task. So it's like, how are you supposed to run a business in a country like that where they have these ridiculous barriers that they put in place? It's absurd and unheard of. I've never seen anything like this in any other time in history, man.
Yeah, and it's clearly racist against white people. It's going to hurt them.
It's absolutely what. There's lots of guys out there that are telling me right now, like I am fearful for my job. I've been here for 20 years, and they are systematically getting rid of people like me.
Just to put some idiot in charge.
Just to
Where
put
does this all coming
an
from?
identity
Like,
hire
coming from
in
like
charge.
BlackRock and Vanguard and these massive companies.
Dude, I wish I knew. It's difficult to point, to pinpoint it. It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, you see it going on. It's out of my control. I don't think I can do anything about it. So I'm gonna run my life in a way where I don't get caught up in that BS.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole. I know for sure BlackRock's pushing it, but I don't know where else it's coming from. It's these giant investment firms are pushing it on their companies.
Yeah, but
that's not the only place it's coming from.
I don't know if it's to eliminate competition, if it's to manipulate and soften, the parts of the workplace, the workforce. Dude, there's a lot of moving parts back there somewhere.
Yeah, they definitely don't.
And I haven't seen them all yet.
Yeah, no, it's hard. You see something's off. It's just hard tracking it down and figuring out exactly what.
Yeah.
But that's certainly not good. And is Canada, are you guys also in massive debt like the United States?
Massive debt, massive consumer debt. They keep sending money over for proxy wars. Like we've got all these problems in Canada, and they're busy painting roads with trans flags and sending money to proxy wars when we've got all these internal problems within our own country. And it just doesn't make any sense to me. The Ukraine-Russian thing, Palestine stuff. It's like deal with internal issues first before you start sending money off to solve other people's problems.
Yeah, I don't think we should fund either one of those wars. And I think we just sent them both $9 billion each. I think we won't get to this podcast, but I saw you were starting to look into Israel a little bit.
Yeah,
Liberty,
I watched the one with the USS Liberty, which was really interesting. I found that fascinating. So, yeah, I'm starting to see what's going on there with Israel and the U.S. And there seems to be like there's a lot of breadcrumbs there that are connecting to.
Yeah.
They don't look like a strong ally for the U.S.
No, it's like an abusive relationship where they pretty much dominate us, but they've somehow managed to pay us off through like APAC.
Isn't that interesting? You know, the most powerful country in the world is run by this little island nation in the middle of the Middle East sort of thing.
Yeah, it's baffling.
I mean, it's not an island, but it's like surrounded by Muslim sort of culture
sort
of thing, right?
Yeah, they went there. I don't know why they had to take that land. It's so weird how they chose that land. That's why there's so many problems.
Yeah, it's switched hands back and forth, and I don't think that's ever going to change in history. Like I don't know what the solution is to that conflict that's there. It's always been there, and I think it's always going to be there.
Well, the two-state solution would be the solution, but they're not going to do it. I think they're trying to take more land, like what's greater Israel. I don't want to get into this podcast or another one, but there's this whole land that they want to get. People can Google the greater Israel, which, in my opinion, they're trying to take a lot more land, which now they're going into Lebanon, pushing out the rest of Palestine, and unfortunately, we back them. My stance is I just don't want to give them any money. Let them sort it out.
Yeah, I'm with you on the don't give them money thing, right? And just let them figure it out is where I'm at.
Just pull out all military supply, all money, and let them figure it out. I think if we did that, I think they would actually come with a two-state solution, because all of a sudden they'd be like, oh, America's not backing this up anymore.
Yeah.
We better start working something out.
Yeah. I mean, they've done a lot of things in Israel anyway to sort of disappoint America, but it's surprising that America still support like the whole weapons of mass destruction thing.
Oh yeah,
we're pretty sure they're there. You guys should go in and do something about that.
Yeah, we fought that.
I mean, that was any excuse they could to go into
war for Israel. Yeah. How much money and life did that cost us? They didn't send one troop in, $1.
And there was nothing there. There was no weapons of mass destruction. There was nothing.
They just wanted to get rid of Saddam Hussein. They're trying to push us to overthrow Syria.
Yeah,
they'll try to push.
What do you think of the notion that Epstein was a Mossad agent?
I think he certainly was. I think if you track,
he was there to blackmail, politicians and high net worth individuals.
Yeah, I think it's almost proven at this point. There's so many, like every aspect of it was connected to like
because Epstein's dead. Gisele's got jail time. None of the people that were on the island ever.
No. And Epstein was just a worker for it. He wasn't like the head guy. You start tracking it, it goes, what's the guy, the Wexner or whatever? He's the head, I think, like the Jewish Congress. He was the one that was funding him. Because Epstein went from like a math teacher to all of a sudden run this giant, having planes, private islands. Like he was handed all this money basically to do blackmail. Yeah. And probably blackmail. He was mostly after politicians and finance people.
Yeah. So people. That seems like the most obvious thing there.
I have a feeling the Diddy thing is going to end up being a blackmail operation for Israel as well when it tracks down to Clive Davis, the person that Diddy worked for.
Okay.
So yeah, you start going down these rabbit holes, and you're just like, yeah, it gets pretty wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, how much faith do you have in Canada getting any better?
I'm planning an exit. I got obligations there for a few more years, so my plan will be to get out of Canada. I was looking at the States, but I'm a little concerned about what happens with the election this fall, so we'll see what happens with that. Maybe there's a few places that I might contemplate in the States because it's close, same time zone sort of thing. But it's looking like the standard strategy of getting 2 to 3 passports. I've already got 2 passports, but getting about 3 passports and then having the ability to maneuver.
Where do you have passports to? Because I want to get another passport soon.
Yeah, I was born in England, so I have a UK passport. I have a Canadian passport. I'll probably get one of those, passports by investment or residency programs or whatever in the Caribbean or something like that.
You haven't looked into it. I don't think it's that easy to get them, but I would definitely like another one in case things get too weird.
You need it, man. You need it. Like if you're influential and you're on the radar and you've got money, I think you need to have more than 1 passport for sure. Because the next time they try to lock you down and you can't, like, you don't own your passport. The government owns your passport. So if they want to take it away from you and you can't leave the country, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, especially me being a distant voice. People definitely don't like me. So it's good to have
if you're vocal, like I'm actually concerned about ever going back to England because they're putting people in jail for the shit they say on social media.
It's so insane.
So like they've put a lot of people in jail now, or they've arrested them to interrogate them or to charge them with something. And it's like, I don't remember what I've said on social media, but I've said a lot of things they've done in the UK over the years is pretty stupid. Right? So I don't really have any plans to go back there anytime soon right now.
People got a couple years too in jail for some of those like Facebook posts. They got like 3 years or something.
Yeah.
Something else wild Canada did during the trucker protest.
Yeah, that was a crazy time.
People's bank accounts.
Seized people's bank accounts, canceled their insurance. Trudeau enacted the Emergencies Act, which basically gave him extreme power to do that and more. they actually, I think they put plants within the truckers' protests to start to try to like stir up shit. Like they put people in there with like Confederate flags and stuff like that, and swastikas.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, to try to like stir up the pot and say that they're like xenophobic and they're racist and they're like Islamophobic and all this sort of stuff. And that was just Canadians getting sick and tired of being sick and tired of lockdown. And it got to the point where the truckers were like, we're in our truck by ourselves like 99% of the time. Why do we need to get this experimental thing that they're trying to cram down our throats? F that. We're going to go up to Ottawa, park our trucks, honk our horns, and just sit there until they change something. And it was truckers that changed the state of the lockdown in Canada. Canada was one of the most locked down places in the world, aside from Australia. We didn't have lockdown camps like Australia did, but we had everything else. I remember there was a big announcement on the radio, and like me and my boys would like to do rallies and drive and stuff like that, like supercar stuff.
Yeah.
And they were like, you cannot leave your postal code. If you leave your postal code, we are going to check your ID and we're going to arrest you because you need to stay where we've told you to stay. We're like, F that. We're going to go up north. We're going to get one of those Reuben sandwiches from that place that we like. And we just drove and left. And it's funny because we were watching the news later on that night and the cops came on the news because it was around like the George Floyd time. They're like, yeah, we're not going to enforce that.
Yeah, it's unenforceable. San Francisco actually tried doing that, but in America you can't enforce it.
Yeah.
They announced if you leave San Francisco, you're not allowed back in. And
they did everything they could to get you to take the experimental. Did everything they possibly could.
You didn't take it, correct?
I didn't take it, but they stopped us from traveling. Again, you know, proof of vaccination was not the same thing as vaccination. So you could get proof of.
Yeah, I had a card. I didn't get. I think it's probably illegal, but whatever.
Yeah.
Screw them. The fact that they were I actually never used it though, because out of principle, I never wanted to use the fake card. I was kind of like, if someone wouldn't let me in, I was like, screw you.
But it was such a bizarre time. Like you'd walk into a restaurant and COVID would be up there. You'd have to wear a mask walking in. But as soon as you sat down, you could take it off. So COVID was not down here. It was only up here.
It was really an IQ test.
And nobody questioned that.
No, the fact that people just went along with that was just like baffling to me. That was one of the most baffling times. And for me, I refused to wear a mask. And, you know, everyone in San Francisco, everyone's like, oh, just put it on, make it easy. I'm just like, well, maybe you guys should take it off instead. And like, the only time I did was to fly. I think the first week or two, you know, I put it on when I go in restaurants and stuff. But after that, are like,
I still see people driving around in their cars by themselves wearing a mask in Canada.
They mentally broke a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's baffling.
Yeah. All the softies.
I know multiple people that have been injured from the vaccine that were healthy.
Several. I know a few people that have died and they don't connect the dots.
No, and there'll never be any.
I know people that suffered in the hospitals from like some of these other drugs that they put out, like remdesivir, right? Like I know a few people that died from that too.
No, that was brutal. I had a friend who in the hospital wasn't real bad, but then they gave him that, and he was like really messed up, almost died. I think they might even put him on a ventilator because they were poisoning him, and they put the ventilator in.
It's nephrotoxic. It destroys their kidneys. Yeah.
But yeah, they probably knew it too, but they didn't care. It was
and how much money did all these officials make, you know, off of all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, billions, and it just shows you I think the whole medical industry overall, you need to be careful. People are too trusting. I think you need to take
the Ozempics, all the statins they have. You know, I had a doctor on my podcast that was talking about statins and cholesterol, and he's like, you know that years ago, like the measurement lines were here, and then when pharma companies invented statins, they lowered the lines and they said, oh, now it's down over here.
Oh wow!
So because you're in this range over here, you now have to take this new drug that we've just invented, right? So there's all these stories and all these rabbit holes. I'll send the guy over to you if you want to talk to him.
Oh, that would be great. That'd be an interesting thing. All the drugs, because I'm very skeptical.
He knows loads about all this sort of stuff.
Because I'm very skeptical. There's some great things in medicine. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of
there's some wonderful drugs, drugs. But the vast majority of medical care in North America, in the West anyway, it's not about solving problems. It's about keeping you sick and keeping you alive.
They also hand out surgeries like crazy. I've been recommended like 4 or 5 surgeries, never done any of them.
Yep.
In my knee, I had like a second, third opinion. They told me 100% needed it and didn't get it, and I'm fine now.
I've had a few guys that were recommended knee surgeons to take peptides first. BBC 157, TB 500. Use that. See if that solves a problem first.
Yeah, definitely.
And it did for everybody.
BP 157. That's great. It's where do people get that? It's kind of tricky. You have to order it online. It's like kind of a gray area.
BP 157 is easy to get. There's certain ones like tesamorelin and ipamorelin a lot harder to get, but BP 157 is easy to get.
Yeah, I fed that into my knee, and it was
it's easy. Solves the problem.
My knee was pretty bad. That's why I was thinking about getting the surgery. But it took a little bit, but a few months, and then I rehabbed it myself. And the rehab on the knee surgery was 9 months.
Yep.
And I rehabbed it in like 3 months with training again.
Yeah, but they want to go in there and charge you money or insurance money. They cut out, put a fake knee in or whatever it is they're going to do. It's like the vast, like the whole thing with Ozempic, for like the obesity epidemic sort of thing. It's like they don't need to put this drug in you that makes you lose muscle mass. Like it's basically a gateway to dying sooner, because we all know that lean muscle mass is a strong indicator of longevity and health as you age, right?
Yeah.
But what ends up happening when you take these drugs is, sure, you lose fat, but you also lose bone and muscle, which is problematic for you, right? It's like, just eat better. Like Why doesn't the government modify the tables as far as like stuff that goes in food, with the amount of salt, with the amount of preservatives, with the amount of stuff that ends up in food that's not good for you? Instead, people just blindly take it because it's convenient to stick it in the microwave for 37 seconds and turn it on and eat that rather than cook something. If they took that stuff off the shelf, then you wouldn't need these Ozempics and all this other crap.
Yeah, and I think we're eating poison. For me, I mostly eat good, so I really feel it. If I eat like a Denny's, I'll be sick. I think a lot of people eat that food so much they don't realize it. Like you gotta learn to listen to your body. Just go eat healthy for like a month, and then go eat some crap food, and you'll be like, wow, I don't feel good.
Yeah, but they don't teach you how to eat well now. I mean, like even when I was a kid, they still had that like food pyramid. And it was like, oh, you'd have some bread, and you'd have some carbs, and some meat, and some dairy, and stuff like that. But then when you sort of like dive down the rabbit hole, oh, dairy's got pus in it, so that's gross. Okay, and then they've got this other stuff in like breads, which aren't good for you. Most people have an inflammatory response to wheat because of the way that it's processed. I know that I do because I've taken the blood test. Right? It's like, you know, if you stay away from certain things, you won't be fat. I mean, if you move more and eat better, you will be healthy, and you don't need any of these drugs.
Yeah, I've never been fat, and nor would I ever get it. And if I put on 3 pounds, my friends will start fat shaming me. That's why it's important to have good friends.
You know, I thought about this the other day. If you took somebody from a time machine from 1,000 years ago and you brought them back over here and you brought them into a gym, like even to watch people working out, they probably think, what the hell are you wasting energy on picking up things and putting them down for when you should be getting food or farming? Like nobody was fat 1,000 years ago. There's no big bones they've ever dug up in a dig site. But you get people today going, oh, I'm not fat. I'm just big boned. There's no such thing as big bones, buddy.
Even like 100 years ago, no one was really fat, other than a few people.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, like
even as recent as that.
Like 30, 40, 50 years is when it's gone out of control. And it's a real epidemic, but no one wants to talk about it. That's a much bigger deal than COVID was.
That's a huge, and you know what? If they really cared about us, if they really gave a damn about us, they would have given us things like vitamin D instead of, you know, whatever it is that they put in that injection. Or they wouldn't say things like ivermectin or horse paste because it's clearly proven to have worked and saves a lot of lives.
Yeah, I know people that took it said it worked great.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of hard reading the studies, but it seemed like it definitely was helpful.
Like quercetin, zinc, vitamin D, like those help support immune function. And most people's immune function was sufficient to get out of the mess that they would have got in 99% of the time. If they were under the age of like 60, 70 or something like that, most people just got through it just fine.
Yeah. It was mostly like
I got
sick,
it. I was sick for like 2 weeks. It sucked for 3 days. I was out of it.
As far as I know, I never even got it. I don't really get sick very often. That's the thing too. Different people have different immune systems. I have a good immune system, so I'm not going to be scared of something that's probably not going to get me.
Yeah, but that's taboo today, man. Like you can't say that. It's wild, and like a lot of these platforms suppress all of that. Like I had Peter McCullough on my podcast. You know, he sent over to me by a good friend of mine, and I had that podcast up for 19 hours, and they took it down and they struck my channel because of it. It's like, do you know, like, I mean, your viewers will know who Peter McCullough is because he was famously on the Joe Rogan podcast and talked in length about his experience with heart and like all this. It's like he was one of the most well-researched and well-spoken guys on the topic. But they said that it was misinformation. Like, you got to be kidding me, man.
It's really scary that they decided it was misinformation, and so much of what they said was wrong. You know, the vaccine was safe. They said. Remember, they said if it escaped from a lab, they were banning you, and then it turns out they knew it escaped from a lab. They covered it up. So
and the former CEO of YouTube, she died recently, probably as a result of the experimental.
Yeah, I'm really curious how many of these new diseases are coming. We'll probably really never know because it's going to be buried.
Yeah, you'll never get that information.
But yeah, anything else you want to hit before we wrap it up?
Oh man,
any other interesting topics?
So much stuff that we could talk about. I mean, I could go down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes. If you want to hit anything else,
yeah, is it 1 or 2 more? We got what time? Yeah, we can do about 10 more minutes.
What do you want to hit
on?
Your show.
What's new? You're out shooting, right?
Yeah.
Talk about guns. What kind of?
Yeah, I love guns. Guns in Canada are tough to deal with, right? Because we have these categories. Let's talk about that, right? So we've got non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited guns in Canada. Non-restricted are like hunting rifles, bolt action, shotguns, stuff like that. Long guns, basically. Then they got the restricted stuff, which is handguns, so short guns, semi-automatic, 10-round mags. And the federal government's trying to take the guns away from people. And anytime there's a shooting, then they use that excuse, for a reason to take guns away from people. And it's like, not a lot of people have guns in Canada. Like, the thing that you guys have going on in the States that I respect and admire is built in the Constitution. And that's a leg up that you have from Canadians.
It's harder to take our rights away.
Yeah, it's very hard to take your rights away, and you have so many guns and so much ammo. It's like the government's legit scared of you guys, I think. Whereas in Canada, they're not. And there's not enough people that would be able to stand up and do anything, even if the shit did hit the fan. So I think guns are great. I think you should learn how to hunt. I think that you should definitely know where your food comes from. Hunt your own food if you can.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Learn how to be competent with a firearm. Know how to you know, whether it's a bow and arrow, a crossbow, a firearm, knives, you know, whatever it happens to be. But I think firearms are like pretty straightforward. They're very easy to use. They're very efficient. You know, if you need to get food and you got a long rifle and you know how to use it and aim it properly, then you're in a good spot. But yeah, you know, I love guns. I love fast cars. I love anything that moves quickly. So, you know, today we were at the range. We're shooting everything. We had these belt-fed guns and handguns. We're doing everything. It was awesing.
Yeah, I wanted to come out. Unfortunately, I had out late last night. It was kind of busy this morning. But yeah, next time shoot.
Strip clubs will do that too.
It's extremely hot here right now too.
It's real hot out today.
But you know, Vegas is great. You can just go out in the desert and shoot.
You can do anything, man. We were looking up. You know, you get on a Huey with a Gatling gun and shoot a car, like $10,000-$15,000. It'll blow up in front of you while you're shooting it from a helicopter. It's just, I mean, that's the cool thing about Vegas. You can do anything here practically. Yeah,
you got a lot more freedom here than California, where I'm from, or Canada, where you're from. And
yeah, you can't get away with anything close to the stuff that you do down in Vegas and Canada.
Yeah, like California, they're just taking so many rights away. Having moved from California to here, it's just, you know, you can't send your kids to school if they're not age. Just all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, they must have a long list of you got to take now.
Yeah, like a whole giant, and you know that's a whole completely different topic. But I'm starting to be skeptical of all of them. You know.
Yeah, you know, we were born with an immune system. Like I've seen vaccines save some lives. You know, like the long time proven one sort of thing. But I think a lot of the stuff that they're cramming down kids' throats today as a prerequisite to go to school, like how is that going to play out long term? Right? Like, you know, we've seen autism rates spike at more at like the rates we see today more than any other time in history. I remember when I was in school, we didn't have like socially awkward, weird kids. There was like one kid. Now it seems like in classrooms, about a third of the kids are sort of like, there's something weird there. Like people are having kids later in life. They're giving them more vaccinations than ever before. Like there's all kinds of complications that come with this, and we're not really seeing the downstream effects of this. Like this is a new era. Like this is a long-term experiment. Screens too. You know, people are shoving screens in front of their kids. You go to any restaurant now, parents are sitting there and the kids are staring at the screen.
They'll have like a little kid on a screen.
Yeah, with the headphones on, and the parents are just sitting there and they're on their screens too.
No, it's like, I get it. You want your kid to be quiet, but you just can't do that. In my opinion, you shouldn't do that.
You know,
you got to learn to just like entertain them yourself.
You know, when I was a kid, you know, my granddad would be like, you know, kids are meant to be seen, not heard, right? Like, and we were told to just sit still and be quiet. Now they give them screens to shut them up.
Yeah, I'm so glad we grew up in that generation where we're outside
playing,
Last one. Not on screens. Yeah, it'd be tough growing up now.
Last one, yeah.
Everything's on screens, social media, like how you're perceived online.
And it's real dangerous for girls, I think, too. You know, boys use like phones different than girls. Like boys will take pictures of things, cool car, you know, they're like video game or, you know, whatever it is that they're doing, but they tend to point the camera outwards, right? Women tend to point the camera inwardly, selfie mode, and they've come to realize that the more provocative, the more salacious they are with the photography, the more likes, the more views, the more comments they'll get. Like that's why we have all these women on OnlyFans, right? Extracting money from these simps, right? Because they figured out that if they show a lot of skin, money comes, you know, their way. So it's either money or attention, and I think that's damaging to a lot of women. Like we're turning women into prostitutes, basically.
Because then most of these women they become undateable, in my opinion. After that, I would never date a girl that would done OnlyFans or any of that.
Yeah, and they all think that they can get a husband and a guy or whatever, and they're going to look past their past.
What happens to these
you
girls
never erase that.
They can still have sex with a lot of the guys they're into, but they can't date them. So they think they're still fine because they're like, oh, I just had sex with this guy. He was, you know, he was someone I'd want to date, but the guy wouldn't date them. So I think they get confused. They don't realize how bad they're devaluing themselves.
Yeah, and men don't realize how gross it is until they figure it out, right? Like women don't understand how bad promiscuity is, and I don't think men understand promiscuity until they, like, there's no guy in history, there's no man in history that has ever said, I wish my wife banged 50 more guys before I married her.
No, it's like girls have what they're attracted to, which is totally acceptable. But for some reason,
different.
When we say what we're attracted to, sometimes it becomes like controversial. But no man wants a girl that's, you know, promiscuous.
Yeah, she'll have a long list. He's got to be tall. He's got to be rich. He's got to be interesting. He's got to be influential. He's got to have a six-pack. He's got to have a head of hair. He's got to blah, 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 right? And it's like a guy would be like, I just want a girl that wasn't a whore. Yeah. Oh, you're misogynist. You know, what's the matter with you? You hate women or something like that.
Well, it's like thin, younger than me, and not a whore. And people just freak out over that.
Yeah.
Like, what are you, a pedophile?
Oh, you're fat shaming or you're fat phobic or something. It's so strange to me, man. Like common sense is no longer common.
Yeah, it's like they won't admit reality. Girls, I guess maybe it's a little bit, and they misunderstand it too. It's not like saying no, you're ugly because you're older. That's not saying at all. It's just typically men want, you know, young, less promiscuous, thin women.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated.
It's simple.
It's reality.
I just want a tattoo-free virgin. That's it. How's that?
Pretty simple. Well, cool. Let's wrap it up. So, what's your YouTube? I think you said in the beginning, but
Entrepreneurs in Cars, or you can go to the Unplugged Alpha, which is more of the podcast stuff.
And Twitter's just Richard.
Yeah, just Rich_Cooper. I mean, or just go to my website. It's richcooper.ca, and it's all centrally located there.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, man. Cheers. Appreciate it.